Hey guys, Hailey, Lain, aka Key Black here, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Cuff. A very special episode. Merry Christmas to everybody. I realize this is a little bit early, but by the time my next episode goes up, Christmas will have come and gone, and it'll be Boxing Day. So I wanted to make sure I get you guys my best wishes on time. I was kind of sitting here wondering what it was I was going to do for a Christmas special episode, but then I realized, while I don't have that many movies that I personally associate with the holidays, I know about all the Christmas special movies that are, famous, but I didn't really grow up watching a lot of them because my family usually spent the Christmas holiday by just getting together. We didn't really turn on the TV. We had music going, sure, but we didn't really turn on It's a Wonderful Life or the Peanuts special or anything like that. It wasn't until much later in my life, I want to say middle or high school, when I finally got the guts to watch a movie that my sister had loved for a long time, The Nightmare Before Christmas. I've mentioned to you guys before when talking about scary stuff that I was always a very sheltered, very easily frightened child, and my first impression from The Nightmare Before Christmas is for years I thought it was a scary movie, so I refused to watch it. When I finally grew a backbone in middle school to finally watch it, I fell in love with it completely, pretty much like every teenage girl with a slight inclination towards goth or edgy stuff does. I had the merchandise, I learned the entire soundtrack. There's a 50-50 chance where, to this day, if you say something that reminds me of A Nightmare Before Christmas line, I will burst out into song. But then there's also the angle of, it is one of the most beautifully animated movies I have ever seen. And you guys know me, I'm a 2D animator. I'm a traditional animator, which means I draw every single frame of animation. I've dabbled in a couple of other kinds, but 2D is definitely my comfort zone. I would say The Nightmare Before Christmas was my real first exposure to stop motion animation, which I know kind of has this stigma of the uncanny valley being associated with it. It's understandable, because moving something in 3D space without doing it in real time, you're gonna get a little bit of jitteriness to the motion. But there's also the somewhat more technical side to that, which I really gained an appreciation for when watching Nightmare Before Christmas, because the thing about stop motion animation, when you're doing 2D animation, you can redraw frames that don't work. When you're doing 3D animation, you can always repose a keyframe as needed. Stop motion, however, you have to start from the beginning of the shot and go chronologically to the end of the shot. There's no going back and filling in the in-betweens, because there's no way you're going to get that character model positioned exactly as it was previously in the last couple of frames. In other words, if you make a mistake when doing stop motion animation, you gotta redo the entire shot. So the craftsmanship in The Nightmare Before Christmas is not only just beautiful animation on the face of it, but it's like cranking up the difficulty to 11, because that is some of the most difficult kind of animation that one can do. So for me, watching that movie for the first time, it was completely mind-blowing seeing the absolute subtlety and careful precision of how each character's personality is portrayed, even through slight variations in how they move. I was going back and rewatching some of the movie again to refresh my memory before talking about this, and I was just marveling at the contrast between how Jack moves and all the little elves during the What's This sequence. Jack has this weird, hunched, almost predatory, creepy posture, even though he's being super enthusiastic, right? It's just the nature of what he is, and the way that he moves gets that across in spite of some of the most adorable expressions I've ever seen on a skeleton. You've got these cute little elves bouncing around and moving like children versus Jack, who swoops in through the window like some kind of shadow beast, which makes for some of the most hilarious visual gags in the movie, like when the elf wakes up thinking that something just touched me in my sleep. And then of course at the end of that number when Jack is going, "What is this?" and he's got that almost frustratedly enthusiastic but confident stomp towards this signpost. He leaps with joy and he smacks Looney Tunes style into the signpost. I swear, the sculptors even created squashed head shapes for the 2 frames that he's actually hitting the signpost, and then he does this, still body head vibration, kind of like, there it is. It cuts off the action so perfectly. It is fantastically done. And each of the characters has a totally unique way of moving as well. I remember watching some behind the scenes stuff a long time ago where they were exploring different walk cycles, for example, for Sally. And they were talking about what they were going to try and portray with Sally's character, which is that she's very feminine, she's very graceful. If she was a living human being, she would move with some incredible grace. But she's a sewn together ragdoll corpse. And so there's this kind of haltingly shambling quality to her walk too that doesn't detract from her femininity or her grace. And I'm just like, man, that is some of the most incredible work I have ever seen in developing characters and the way that they move, which I think is part of what carries the charm of the movie so much. Like, if you look at the face of it, the characters aren't exactly attractive. They're not cute. Even the ones that are meant to be cute are kind of uncanny valley, but it's in the way that they move and the way that they behave that makes them so endearing. I love this one shot where Jack has opened the Christmas store and he's peering inside of it, and his face is the same face throughout, of course, because they're having to replace the face and head entirely on the rig anytime that he wants to change expression. So they keep the head the same, and they actually just convey his personality and his attitude entirely through his posture and his body language, and it is so effective. It's really fun if you go back through the movie and you try to look for where they kind of used other methods to convey the characters rather than redrawing the face. It's really, really incredible what they managed to convey. Like, looking back again at the what's this sequence, I think there's only like 2 places where the elves actually have different expressions that are added to the characters. Everything else they get away with just with the posture. And like, the proof is in the pudding. It is such an effective like conveyance of that really wholesome message to the story in spite of the setting that, yes, the movie's really edgy, but I think it's the wholesomeness and the sincerity and the really incredible craftsmanship of this film that has made it so relevant across the last several generations. I find it both hilarious and incredibly heartening that this movie is still considered relevant and is still considered like, you know what, yeah, the characters are kind of creepy, but that is exactly the kind of message that we need in Christmas movies. So guys, on that note, I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you again so much for listening and for watching. I highly recommend checking out Nightmare Before Christmas again this holiday season, and I will see you in the next episode of Off the Cuff. Thanks again.
Shall I open this then? Well, it is Christmas Day. You shouldn't have bothered, you know.